Morning. How are you?
Fine, fine. Good morning, ma'am. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Rupesh.
Now you are with a brick on.
You've done some magic to your video. You look like an alien coming who has come from a different planet.
I don't know why something is wrong, I think.
Yeah, how this video is changed? Can I change my zoom also? Background?
Yes, you can. You can change the setting. No, you go to setting. You can pick up a background. There are filters also. Like you can have an eye filter. You can have a lip filter. You have a lot of filters. You have backgrounds.
But I think this natural background is also okay.
Yeah, this is fine. Absolutely, sir.
Yeah. Madam, I hand over the host to you.
Okay.
And please proceed for the last class for paper 5.
Thank you.
Okay. And Rupesh is here. Today, Sudeep Jaiswal, who used to come first, he is not there. So Rupesh became the first one. So I hand it over to you. You
Sure.
are the host.
Okay. Yes,
Okay.
I am the host. Yes.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. So, Rupesh ji, how have you been?
Fine.
So, how is work? How is everything? How is your preparation for the exam? Are you studying anything?
Currently, I am in Gorakhpur, so I'm native place.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be reaching Delhi around 28, 29.
So, you are in a full-time job or you are doing a freelancing? You are doing something of your own?
No. I was in working with a logistic company, but for the last 2, 3 months, I am not with that company, and that company has been shifted to Bangalore.
Oh, okay.
So I'm looking for some other good opportunity.
Okay. So you
It
can't
was
shift
not,
to Bangalore or
no, it was not possible for me to shift to Bangalore because the company's performance was not, not satisfactory, you can say, because वहाँ पे जाने के बाद if something happens, then it would be
it's a
more
big
serious.
risk relocating
Yeah.
for an organization and then things don't work out.
So I decided to,
Perfect.
yeah,
And you need some time also. Sometimes you need some break.
definitely, yes.
So you can always do something of your own.
Right.
So today, what I plan to do is I do not plan to share any of the presentation per se.
Right.
I thought we will probably talk about what we have discussed already. So there are a lot of discussions which we have completed already.
Right.
And we will talk more from a perspective of writing in the exam. If you have any papers or any specific questions which you wish to discuss, I am happy to have a conversation around that. Otherwise, we will have a general chat in terms of how should you attempt various questions, what should be your approach, because it's a completely applied paper. So even if you don't think in terms of theory, and if you're able to visualize a question, and if you're willing to look at it as a case study, and then apply through visualization, right through the entire process, then it'll have an impact. They have a better impact because then examiner would also be able to evaluate that yes, you know things in practice. So that should be practically your approach in terms of writing your answers also. Think, you visualize, write step by step, and completely share your practical examples, your practical suggestions in terms of what kind of checklist one should make. Like we have talked about facilitation skills. So in facilitation skills, we have talked about what are the different type of workshops. So when is the workshop done? So you develop a professional skill. You can write about that, what does a professional skill include, like time management, coaching, public speaking. So you can bring in examples from your own experience or whatever you do at workplace. So, different, but try and categorize things in form of checklist, in terms of bullet points, in terms of examples, in terms of role plays. So let that person really see what knowledge you have around that topic. Am I making sense?
Yes, yes.
So I will quickly run past what we have discussed already. So whenever somebody asks you, when should you be getting into facilitation? So you can say that, facilitation help you. First point could be, you help a person develop a professional skill, or you help. There are a lot of creativity or innovative workshop these days. So you help person develop an artistic or a creative skill. Because what you try and do in creativity also needs a process where you let people into that zone. So you talk about it, how do you, structurally and institutionalize creativity also. How is you can also teach people about models or methods or assessments. You can do a strategic planning or a visioning workshop where you let everybody think where do they want to, where because it connects. This normally happens with the senior leadership team. There are facilitation which you do for personal development, where you help people understand, be more aware of their own type and how can they be successful with their different teams. They let explore their own personality type, because we used to do a program called MBTI, which MBTI for team. So it first let you explore that there are different personality types. Once you acknowledge and understand your own personality type, you have, and you realize that there are different personality types. You have acceptance for different personality types. You're willing to change your style of working once you're aware. So first thing is awareness. So you are aware of your own style, the way you operate, and you are also open to how others are operate. So everybody wants to be the way they are. They are not. They would not be happy the way you are. So nobody would like to. We all are different because we are function of our environment, upbringing, learning. So a lot of factors which constitute me as an individual. I look at things very differently. My world view is different than yours. If you will, if you force me to look at it from your point of view, probably I would not like it. But if you're willing to accept my point of view, and then we are then deliberating or discussing on something, it becomes much easier to reach to a point. So, personal development, that plays a huge role. You do team building and you do other kind of workshops as well. So write it point wise. Then like with workshop facilitations, you do ground rules. So how do you set ground rules? So do point wise. Write ground rules also. So even if you have to write, if you've been probably asked to design a training, write your ground rules, like the way you say switch off your mobile phones, the way you will raise questions, the way you will contribute in terms of whiteboarding, the way you will contribute in terms of visioning, the way you will contribute in terms of action planning along with me at the end of a workshop. So write them as ground rules. Your ground rules should start with, first of all, buying that commitment from people, and second, from engaging people in terms of including them so that they have their takeaways, so that inclusion can also have interactive exercises. Further, you break the ground rules. So that way, cite those ground rules as is the way you would use in a typical normal classroom setting or a training room settings. So what will you do in terms of including? You will have interactive exercises. You will have, if you also have, if you have consulted any website in terms of interactive exercises, you can write those websites also. So normally you can say that in this particular training, I use this, but you can also refer to a workshop bank at workshopexercises.com, workshopbank.com. You can refer to things like Appreciative Inquiry AI Common website. You can go to projectadventure.ca. So what you probably need to explore while having that conversation through writing with the examiner is write everything which you possibly would practically do, but also enable other person that these are some of the other resources. If you're looking for additional interactive exercises, you can explore. What I normally do, what do I do on inclusion? This is what do I do on inclusion. You can refer navigation guides to making meetings accessible. So a lot of other things you can probably you can refer as resources which people can refer to while writing or using or creating those exercises. What should be a workshop preparation checklist? So checklist becomes very important because that this help you create a dialogue with the examiner that yes, you know all these things. So small details you should while you do a checklist, you pick up a date and time, you select the location, you put in the maximum occupancy, you look at the table and chair, you look at parking, you look at audio visual, you look at food, you look at times travel is involved, so you look at insurance, cost. What is like you also look at online platform which you will probably use. What are the system requirement for an online platform? So do you need a webcam? Do you need a live polling? What are the, do you also here it should have a chat tool, it should have a drawing tool, it should have what is it cost effective? So what kind of audio visual technology should you use? You should look at connection to a projector. What are you have the right dongles, you have speakers, you have microphones, you have slide projectors, you have a stable internet connection. So you should look at everything in terms of, and you should write it as you share that checklist. What should you be doing in terms of advertising? What are your target audience? What are your channels to reach to? Should you use email, social media? What kind of graphics you would use? What kind of first announcement, second announcement, reminders? What would be your enrollment process? So what is the method of payment if it is a paid training? What is a choice of what kind of, probably in the registration you can also include what kind of food people will have if they need to make choices like veg, non-veg. What are the calendar features, reminders, any attendance sheet or sign-in sheets you need to have, any material or a workbook or a pen which you need to give them, any add-ons, any just what will you do day before a presentation? You will have a speaker note, you will have an agenda, you will have a timing, you will have a leader's tool like microphone, sliders, slide clicker, batteries, tissue, water, anything which comes to your mind. You need a name tag, you need a handout, exercises, catering confirmation, supply of activities, anything which you need like post-it, tape, pen, posters. What will you do after the event? You have evaluations, additional work required, you have an extended learning. So you will advertise it for future event. You will create, how will you create, the action planning or reinforcement group. So anything and everything which comes to your mind, which you would practically do, write it. And write it as checklist or points, because then it becomes easier. You are visualizing and you're writing, and it becomes easier for the other person to connect that, yes, since your detail is, it's your presentation is so detailed to an nth level that you know what you're talking. What is maybe workshop facilitation? But when you do, you can also do an extending the learning. Like, so my key advice to you would be that there are 3 key things which you should put a special focus on. First of all, setting the agenda and expectations. Second thing is, including the participant, considering whichever generation they come from, and ensure at the last point you extend the learning and create some kind of reinforcement of that learning in format of action planning or creating, coffee with each other within that group. So you ensure that this learning is extended and people are at least more connected to the thing for some more time. And you force them through structural interventions, and you create those opportunities for them in the training itself that they will have to connect with each other. You can always create a list of relevant and related material for them. Share it with them. I mean, anything, books which you have read, videos which you have referred to for creating that training, any online resources. So whatever you know of practically, share it with them also. you set up opportunities for them to practice, like you create like Vandana and Rupesh, they meet again for a coffee, say in next 10 days. They probably write their action plan in the training itself. So create those pairs and groups, and hold them accountable. Tell them that probably 15 days after they need to write me a mail, whatever, how have they implemented those learnings. So these things really help. And I will, since I have we've talked about it, so I will also share things like which I have referred to. There is a book, there is a discussion book, 50 Great Ways to Get People Talking by Josie Buss. There is a gamification of learning and instruction by Pfeffer. So I can, if you want, I can probably share it in a mail with you if you need them. And absolutely, you must use practice. You can always refer to websites like ISTD, which gives you huge exposure to the online webinars which are happening, white papers, communities of practices are there. You can always go to e-learning industry, because e-learning is coming up in a big way, where people are trying to automate or probably automate their trainings in some format, and if not completely, so they want to go in a blended format. So they want to pick up something off the shelf, customize it, but at the same time also need to have a online one-on-one session with the facilitator for a smaller time, because time is of an essence. They want to use, they make more of a time, so they do it in a blended format. So then this is what we have talked about in our conversation. I mean, what is facilitation? There is a Cambridge definition of it. Is an act of helping other people to deal with process or reach an agreement or a solution. So then you don't have to write it. So probably you have to use less of a theory. What is the role of a facilitator? So there are a couple of things which you need to put special emphasis on, and probably, maybe repeat in multiple answers in terms of what are the qualities of a facilitator or what is the role of a facilitator. So facilitator act as a catalyst. So you're not a teacher. So you are a facilitator. So you act as a conductor, you act as a catalyst, you act as a coach. It is extremely important for you to include the people, and for including the people, you need to ensure that you stay neutral. You're not taking sides with anybody, and you're not confiding in somebody's point of view, because it closes others, and they're not. You need to ensure that everybody's included, everybody's opening up in the conversation. So you need to ensure that you are controlling and at the same time managing, but at the same also letting people open up. Are you with me on this?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So what does a facilitator do? They might even ask you a role of a facilitator. You design and plan, you run the process, and if you want, these presentations is what I have discussed during my earlier sessions. I am happy to share these presentations also with you if you want these presentations.
No, I have already made a note on all presentation, because I take a screenshot of all your.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but Rupesh, I missed some class because I was down
Okay,
with
okay.
COVID, and
Okay,
I would appreciate, ma'am, if you can really share those slides. That will surely
Right.
help me.
Yes.
So, and also I really like the books that you referred. For example, 50 Great Ways and gamification. So if you can give us the list of books and author and plus sites wherein we can enlighten ourselves and learn more, that will surely help. Shall we share our email ID on the chat thing, and you can share it with us? How does it
Yes,
go?
or
Yes.
I think that should be fine. That should be
Yeah.
fine. Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah.
Thank you.
Because these books are very important, and at the same time they help you create a dialogue also. If you also read a book, I would recommend that you also share in your presentations or in your trainings. People are able to connect with you better.
Right. Absolutely.
So I will, or what you can do is that you can ping me. I can share my number with you, because at times the email chat, this chat, I happen to.
Yeah, I'm sure sometimes we forget because of our own schedule. So, but we would remind you. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, let me share my number with you in a chat.
Sure.
Yeah, miss, please. 9953454462.
So what probably a facilitator should do, I'm sure you all do that, but while writing at times it slips, you feel that this is so obvious, why should you write about it? But you should, the way you actually do it, you should write as if you design and plan a workshop, you run the process and facilitate the meeting, you set the context and ground rule, and you encourage the participants, you facilitate discussion, you hold the time and space, and then at the same time, end of the day, you record results and you ensure that people are able to, people have their respective key takeaways. At times, it's extremely important to create those moments of insight, because people come with, with huge amount of experience. If you are able to, click that bond of including them, people will open up from their experience and it will give you an opportunity to imply or apply whatever you've been telling them in that particular situation, or to validate also how applicable it is and how they can probably take it back to their work. So it's extremely important you include them. They start talking about their experience, and it gives you opportunities. And these are the moments of insight. These are the pieces which they will remember even after the training. So you create that kind of an environment when you're able to create that level of insights for people inside the training. You do that through a process by a proper planning. People don't realize it, but you do it because you have created a process around the inclusion and efficiency, and you follow that process to the T. And then you create those exceptions and moments for people. So you need to ensure that people are learning and thinking. People are linear versus flexible. You are able to control your control the flow or agenda. At the same time, you allow people to open up during the session. So how should you prepare for a meeting? How should you run a meeting? I'm sure you all have seen meetings wherein they go everywhere, and they might even ask you, this is very relevant beyond training, they might ask you about a meeting, because in a meeting, sometimes either one group of people is extensively talking, others are completely silent, or there is the agenda is being hijacked by people who are very talkative. At the same time, the agenda goes everywhere. There is nobody controlling the flow of the training. There are no accountabilities being set up. There are no timelines being set up. And you don't even factor in that you've gotten 20 people inside the training room. They're 1 hour. If you look back at their salaries, if you look at cost of 1 hour of their time, there is a huge cost to the meeting. But what comes out of a meeting, we don't even evaluate all that. And we don't even, there is meeting after meeting happening. So ensuring that how are you setting up a meeting? How are you setting the agenda for the meeting? How are you setting the accountabilities? How are you ensuring that everybody is contributing into the meeting? And at the same time, how, the closure of a meeting happen with some stringent and firm timelines and firm accountabilities. At the same time, you validate those accountabilities for me. Like if you're giving something to Vandana, so you might ask end of the day, Vandana, when, what do you think you can probably, because sometimes, so you can mix couple of things also. Like in situational leadership, what we used to do, we used to, tell people that when should they be delegating, when should they be coaching, and when they should be, when let the person completely do on their own. So there are moments you need to ensure that probably was Vandana, has she done something like that? What she probably can do to make it happen. If you believe that Vandana knows it completely already, you validate that. If you have given her something, is she capable or competent to do that thing? If she is not, probably she need further coaching. Okay, don't let her get overwhelmed by the accountabilities being given to her in the meeting. Ensure, validate with her, does she understand the things what she's been asked to do? Is she competent to do what she's asked to do? If she's not, then probably give her that comfort, coach her and give her that comfort that she would be probably guided and coached through the process, and she will have a flexibility and open the window. She'll have a flexibility to come to you probably twice in a day in case she has any confusions around it. But ensure that you have a process built. I mean, there is a follow-up mechanism. So probably I understand, okay, this is 20th. You have to submit it this on 22nd. So by 21st, first half, will you have a first draft ready? Just take that agreement from her. Let her say yes from her mouth. So it's extremely important that when these meetings are held, factoring in the time you have for the meeting, you ensure that time is sufficiently planned. If something is dragging or something is prolonging beyond the existing, defined time limit, you cut that short and then you come back to an agenda. So facilitating a meeting plays an important role, and then it is best utilization of everyone's time and to get most out of your meeting. So you ensure, I'm sure you have seen meetings like which did not go anywhere, and you have seen meetings which have gone really fruitful. So how do you make your meetings fruitful and how do you get most of your times? That's completely dependent on you, and you put a structure around it and you design it and you think before, before getting into that training or a meeting. What are the tools which you use for group facilitation? We talked about things like probing. Probing is you might not have time to ask questions from everybody. You can simply use gestures. You can ask people to put a thumbs up or a thumbs down if the general opinion of the group is in favor or not in favor. You should always paraphrase, because the same content, the way you are understanding it, for both of you to be at the same plank of understanding, so you should be paraphrasing. You should be bridging and referring back. So what will happen that I ask you as an attendee, I ask you a question, and sometime this you want to involve the group around that topic. So relate back, refer it back. And this allows the group discussion to happen, and you connect the ideas by connecting it to a problem, or look at a problem from different angles, from different experiences. Ensure that you summarize, you first break your content in a logical chunk. So small content. People are not able to listen to you for more than 20 minutes. So what do you do? And this typically maybe you're willing to listen to me, but end of the day, if you're in a training room setting, you want to break your content in a format that you create those opportunities for people. You create an opportunity for people to understand, opportunity for people to participate in this, practice in this, and you summarize that logical chunk. You summarize, okay, so repetition means that you're understanding, you're summarizing, and this is what so this is your path. This is the learning for the group, you have path. When you do an action planning or probably sharing of learning from the training, pick up those keywords from each of the chunks. So that way you will repeat it twice or thrice in a session, and you've created enough opportunity for people to stay seeded in their memory, or to stay seeded. I mean, probably help them. It'll stick for some time. And if you create more reinforcement opportunities, I'm sure you and your learning of your training will be immense, and people will be able to recall them better. Give positive reinforcement. Ensure that you are encouraging people, you including the quieter members. You are, because at times there are people who operate from different personality type. They're not willing, or they're not comfortable in talking. So you create those opportunities for people. I talked about a lot of icebreakers, because this is how you create energy and encouragement and engagement within the group. So I talked about what are the icebreakers you can do in the group settings. You can do what you can probably do in meeting, what we can do for a teamwork and a collaboration. So I used a couple of icebreakers which I use, and couple of websites which you can probably refer to for creating your own icebreakers. I shared this in the group earlier. Arnav, I can probably share it with you also. I had mailed it to them.
Sure, thanks. That will help. Sure.
I also talked about, core brainstorming technique. If anything, Rupesh, which is of interest to you, I've been just talking about things in a flow of all the things which we have talked about so far. What I can probably do, if I can discuss a specific topic in more detail if you want. Feel free to intervene.
Sure. Thanks, ma'am.
So we talked about, core brainstorming technique. We talked about popcorn brainstorm. We talked about round robin brainstorm, brain writing, walking brainstorm, mind map, rapid writing, lotus blossom, star busting, the 5 Eyes. We talked about in-depth brainstorming technique like 25 by 10, 313 by 313 3 brainstorm, mashup innovations, 1 2 4 all. One will you get up 10, the creativity race, affinity maps. There were fun brainstorming techniques we talked about, mind spin, figure storming. So all that I actually shared as stunts, and also I shared the detail of doing it for yourself. So then probably what you can do, because even in these virtual workshops these days, it's extremely important because people are there with you for 2 hours or not more than that. It's extremely important how are you engaging them. So you have to do these things even in virtual sessions. You have to do brainstorms and stuff like that. But what kind of activities and what kind of virtual room sessions you should create so that people are participating in your brainstorm. So.
Maybe, ma'am, once you share the PPTs, if I have few questions, maybe I'll ask those in the next session.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think this is the last session, so.
Okay. Unlucky me. Unlucky me. So
today is the actually concluding session.
So Rupesh, you be my coach.
Right, absolutely. Whatever I know, I definitely. Sure, 100%.
Sure. I'll call you.
Yeah, sure, 100%, no problem.
Yeah, thank
you. Because what will happen, you all have maybe I am calling it a paperclip method. You use a paperclip method in a different format. So all of us have our own interpretations, and we can come up with a different version of it as well.
Sure.
I will share the basic text, which will help you. Yes.
Sure. Thanks.
So then, what are the benefits of group brainstorming? We all know that if we are able to take people to a thinking platform, we come up with extremely relevant suggestions and extremely relevant things, which is very difficult because most of the time the bigger challenge is to make people talk, because people at times is kya baat karni hai, so is that why is I am much older than this person. So people are not willing to talk, and you're not able to set that level of credibility that they open up with you. Probably maybe in a coaching session, one-on-one, they're still more comfortable talking to you, but in a group sessions becomes extremely difficult. Yeah, so this is one of the, so what I'm doing is I'm opening a couple of, all the presentations which I have used in our conversations, and I'm talking through them. So we talked about facilitation's goals, and what does a facilitator do? You can, convert them into a goal and talk about around them only. How should you encourage versus control? Because you need to ensure that people who are very talkative are not hijacking your agenda and not letting you cover which you had planned for a session. While you encourage people to talk, you need to also hold the time and space. So you need to ensure people are encouraged, engaged, and people are emotionally included. But at the same time, you have a control of what you can probably need to cover during that time. You can also be more flexible and take the consent of people that what is it that which is they won't want, because sometimes maybe you might have planned some time here and there, the time may go haywire. So you decide then and there that okay, you're okay to spend, if people are engaging, you're okay to spend 10 more minutes to this, and then probably squeezing the time out of the next section or next logical module. But that completely is, you decide in partnership with the participants, because every training is different, and every training, it depends on the kind of participant you have for the session. So you're willing to create that level of customization and flexibility. So you 5 ways to encourage participation. You frame it up. You get people talking early. It's extremely important that you create those opportunities, or probably the icebreakers, that people are free in the beginning itself. If you create that environment right in the beginning, people feel that this is a safe environment to ask questions. It becomes easier for them to participate throughout the session. You pump up the energy, you use the physical space. It was possible for us to do that when we were in our physical training rooms, but it's a little difficult. So you use those those icebreakers which I have given you for virtual meetings also, to use virtual engagement these days. But once we are back to physical spaces, you can probably explore. You make eye contact with individuals. You create, getting the discussion started. You can have group-oriented questions. You can have individual-oriented questions. You can have factual questions. What are group-oriented? Like, you can pose an interesting question or set a question. Remember, or you can probably ask them, how do you feel about the point made in the presentation? What is in your experience has led you to the view that. So let them talk, let them have that conversation with you right in the beginning, and they're involved in the process. What could be some of the individual oriented questions you can ask specifically? I can ask Rupesh, what is your view on this? Maybe I can ask Arnab, have you done a lot of, I know you've done a lot of reading in this area. How do you see the issue? What are some of the examples from the past that stand out for you? So you can involve that way people specifically, and you can be, but you need to, when you take names, you need to be little cautious in terms of that person should not feel offensive. And you can use factual questions also, like what questions, which questions, how much questions, probably who on our campus is best suited to talk further on this. So you can probably ask these people on their opinion. What are facts according to them? How do you control the process? You set the parameters, you park it, because sometimes when the question is taking inordinately high amount of time, you park it and you say that I'll come back to parking lot. You start asking, rather than asking open-ended questions, start asking closed-ended questions. And you should know when should you stop asking questions, because then if it is taking much more time, you need some time for the content discussion also.
One question. Since this is the last session, I'll try to take maximum advantage of it. I have few friends who are doing a lot of seminars and virtual sessions, and they're also infusing theater skills in training or talking about it. So, I mean, I've been doing training for some time now, but haven't really used theater skills seriously. So, how do you think, since you are into facilitation and you do it for so many organizations, what's your take? How much is it helpful, or how should one include those skills? Just a off track question, I know, but then people are doing it these days.
Yes, people are. There are specific companies which are positioned around that.
Correct.
Like,
Yeah.
I know a company, they do only theater based workshops.
Correct. Yeah.
So I have not done this in virtual settings. I've done this in physical settings only. And it definitely gave an opportunity for people to engage very well. I mean, I did this for a senior leadership team.
Okay.
It becomes much easier for people. See, when you do a workshop like a theater kind of, first of all, you should always do it away from the official settings. I mean, I did it in offsite location, and it becomes, and people, since things which you ask them to do, they're so easy, and they come so naturally to them that it becomes much easier to involve them and engage them.
Okay.
So have you been part of any of the theater workshop as yet, Kunal?
I was I was business head with one of the companies, and there we used to do open this thing sessions for people to join. So one of the participant, one of the trainer was from NSD, National School of Drama. So he was doing it. I was not as a participant, but as an organizer, I was there, and he was like throwing off voice. So if you drop the voice right below your feet, how much your voice level should be. If you have to throw it, 10 feet from where you are standing, how much throw of voice. So all that throw of voice he was doing, and then the more related to voice exercises and expression, and some voice one I remember very well, that much, that one I really liked. So but since I was not training in those days, I was away from training, I was more of a head of the department, stopped from doing training. So my interest level was a little lesser because of being busy, but then I attended some part of it, so I liked it.
It is good, I mean, there are a lot of things which you will see people, completely immersing into the experience. You will see, you will make them do faces. They will make faces, funny faces, crying faces. They will completely be with you. You will revive the child in them. So even with the senior leadership team, you will see the engagement level and the immersion level is very high. So I've done it in a couple of formats. I have done it, those facial expressions, and I have done it. Probably we had, a script created. So there was a script which was broken into 8 parts and was distributed randomly in the people. And people had, the teams had a responsibility of, picking up where completing the script within the group, and then enacting the script.
Okay.
So it was a small movie clip we will give them, or maybe anything. So, but first of all, huge engagement. They're trying to frantically figure out what is the continuation, and that enacting. So then it becomes much easier for debrief on things like creativity, impromptu, and accepting things. Be okay with your emotions, sharing things, giving feedback. So that way you can deliberate on 5 things which you want to talk around, and then create opportunities for people to practice. It's a lot of fun.
Sure. Thanks.
I don't know if I've answered your question
Yes,
or not.
you have. I just wanted to know whether it is relevant. That I got my answer.
Yes. So yes, you remain neutral during the discussion. You remain neutral so that you were able to let people involve more and engage with your session. You know your hot buttons. So you know your hot buttons. Probably something gets Vandana really angry and Arnav says it. So, and then Vandana is not able to control. Or probably I say something which takes Arnav in a completely different zone. So be aware of your own hot buttons, be cautious in terms of, and be observant in what is it that you're doing and doing that to a participant. So you should also be ensuring that you're not turning anyone's hot button, or anyone's hot button is turned off. So in a very calibrated manner, you're bringing that person back to the home. You should be a good gatekeeper. You should ensure that you acknowledge the contribution. You keep the focus on ideas and not on individual. So you should not, talk side any particular individual, but bring back the focus on ideas. Like ask the group to brainstorm on ideas. Ask the group to identify the pros and cons of positions rather than having an individual explain or defend a position. Divide the group in half and ensure that each half they get an opportunity to represent their viewpoint and share argument. You summarize or synthesize statement, be patient with silence, read on non-verbal cues, you post disagreement constructively, I'm sure you understand all that. You minimize attack if there are, personal attacks are happening. So you ensure that you intervene. You should always let people remember or recall the ground rules which they agreed to minimize the disruptions. Inappropriate humor is extremely important for you to curtail, because sometimes this might offend somebody, and so there are many sides of the conversation. So you need to ensure that you minimize those disruptions. So as these are a couple of things which I talked about you should do as a gatekeeper. How do you encourage participation? You create safe and trusting environment. You set up a pattern. Like if something is working for you, you do it more. So ensure the participation is happening more. You individual and group participation, we talked about it. Advancing and deepening conversation, you ensure, because inclusion really gets the most out of your session, and people remember you even after the session. So you ensure that you're taking control of it, and you are ensuring that you're creating a process around inclusion. Aberrations, there would be aberrations. How should you be handling aberrations? That no one is responding. Someone who doesn't take the discussion seriously, or somebody gives silly comments. People monopolize the discussion, and people keep changing the subject, and they go or go on a tangent. The people keep interrupting. There would be belligerent or hostile group members. There would be someone who would put another person down. There would be inappropriate humor. You are running out of time, and someone challenges you as a group facilitator, and people keep addressing their question to you. The conflicts occur, your inability to move to another topic because people are constantly staying on a particular topic, and something inappropriate is stated, something offensive, or misinformation. So how should you be handling those aberrations? Because these things will happen anyways. So how will you handle? I talked about a couple of things, that couple of ways and couple of statements which you can probably use in situations like that. Anything specific you want to talk about, or probably share with your fellow participant? I'm okay if you want to have conversation around that.
Ma'am, repeat this side. Actually, that time it was discussed Kubler-Ross change curve was discussed. So, if possible, please explain it very in short. Explain it. If possible.
So that Ross curve, I will, because I will share an image around that, because what will happen, that we all go through. That was a cycle. That was a cycle which I talked in reference to what's happening in Corona. That in the beginning you are completely confused, then you are accepting the change, and then you creating a process around that. How will you be acting around that change? So that was around the change which I discussed. That was not around the aberrations, Rupesh.
Right.
Yeah.
As per the time, when time and morale and competence graph is
Yes.
some
yes.
kind of emotional response to change.
Yes, emotional response to change. So that was not in reference to something happening. So it's normally because everybody is going through a change, or everybody is acknowledging that this is happening inside their mind. So I connected those things with how a person thinks, as in that neuroscience of thinking and learning.
Right.
And then a change, and then it becomes much easier for you to accept others and be aware of.
Right. Okay.
I will come back to it. I will come back to
Sure.
it. Let me see in what context I want to talk around. I'm just looking at the why facilitator and all this. I think what is an effective facilitation? They might ask you what's an effective facilitation. So you make everyone feel welcome. You establish clear goal. You establish clear expectations. You provide behind the scene expectations. You foster communication. You bring closure to each topic before moving on. you model participation and discussion, you keep the discussion alive, you prevent stagnancy, you keep the discussion on topic, you guide the participant through the content, and you make sure the audience and the content are in sync. So these are a couple of things which you should look at. I also talked about biases, because biases plays a huge role in terms of everyone's mind, which is in between participant also and your own mind also towards participant. So what is confirmation bias? What is hindsight bias? What is better than average bias? So sometimes like this plays a huge role in interview when I've made my viewpoint that okay, I like this person is from same college I have graduated, and this person has done similar projects I have done. So now I am convinced that this is the right person with the right level of competency. Now I'm asking questions to confirm my statement only, because I know this person. I have a gut feeling, and my gut feeling completely comes out of my past experience with people similar like him, but not like him. I mean, when I made those judgments in my past experiences, when I recorded it in my mind, the situation was very different. Now today the scenario and situation is very different. So if I try and bring it back from my memory to make a same judgment which I made 10 years ago or 3 years ago, the reality then was very different. So confirmation bias, normally that's what we do. We are only, we make decisions with assumptions and with our gut feeling, and then we are only asking questions around that. We are only confirming which we have already decided. There's a hindsight bias, there is a better than average bias, there's an attribution bias, availability bias, and authority bias. In any specific you want me to talk, I can talk about.
This one blind spot bias.
Yes, blind spot. There is a Joe Harry window also around interpretation.
Yes, yes.
So what we do is so they divide it into 4 quadrants.
4 quadrants.
Yeah,
Yes.
4 quadrants. What is that? What I know about myself and what others also know about me.
Right.
What I know. So what I know about myself, what others do not know, others do not know about me. What is I don't know of myself, but others know of me. And the last one is which I do not also know and others also do not know. So what the attempt should always be is others are constantly giving me feedback. They are giving me feedback and letting me know myself little better. I am not aware of it. Probably, every conversation what Vandana gets into, maybe with Rupesh, Vandana is so personal that she makes a personal attack. I mean, she feels that she's very friendly with people. She makes people feel comfortable. But every conversation what Vandana does with Rupesh, she make him feel, low. She make him feel compared. She make him feel probably his self-confidence, she literally insults him, but she does not realize. So maybe what probably the conversation, I should be open to Rupesh giving me feedback around it.
Sorry, please go ahead. Sorry.
Are you saying something, Anna?
I'll ask later once you finish.
Okay. So I'm saying this is what probably people should be when they open their feedback window. And when they are willing to listen to a feedback in an open manner, because I feel that I make you feel in a certain way, but that's not a reality. The way you actually feel is a reality. I should better know it.
Right.
So that's blind spot. That's that one way of opening it is through feedback. Other ways opening or probably doing things which you have never experienced with, getting into more of an adventure, exploring the site or parts of you which you have never explored. I've seen people who have completely into a different platform. Now they have started they have written blog, they've started doing adventure travel blogging, which they explored, which by doing certain things and being more adventurous or trying new things.
Right.
And I'm sure I'm open to you suggesting that how people extend or open their blind spots.
Vandana ma'am, these biases, the heading of these biases, list of biases is cognitive bias, or what is the heading? I mean, what type? What do you say? I mean, if you have to really put a heading of all these types, what would be the? I mean, these are subtopics. So, what will be the main subject? Uh, Say, for example, cognitive biases will have some list of biases.
True.
So, what is the heading of all these list of biases? One, I'm just in case if there is, so
So
otherwise fine.
I have not segregated them like that way, but I have put in them as unintentional biases, large number biases, backfire biases. I've not. So when you say cognitive biases, it's like the way connecting it with thinking.
Correct, correct. So it is only one line of
Yeah.
direction. So
But you can also connect with an impact. So maybe better than average will be your blind spot bias. So what is what happens in a better than average kind of a bias is okay. So people say that more than 50. So people will say that there's a famous study. 88% of the American rank themselves in top half when it comes to driving safety. And when they were asked to rank their driving skills, 93% of them said that they are better than average.
okay.
So only 50% can be better than average. So what's 88% are ranking them in top half when it comes to driving safely, but 93% believe that they're better than average. So the number somehow is not matching. So this is what happens, that this is my understanding of better or average. So this is my blind spot bias.
So it's a mix of variety of biases in a way for our kind of environment or our kind of role as maybe facilitator or learning and development. So you have taken it from different aspects and different directions maybe and collated into one, and therefore which relates with learning and development. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah,
So
got it.
what you can probably also do when you classify and when you talk around them, you can classify them based impact also, because they will do this bias and then they get into a blind spot, which they don't realize. So what you can do is either classify them as impact or classify them as origin. Are they coming out of your thinking? Are they coming out of your upbringing? Are they coming out of your assumptions? So where are they coming out of, or what impact they have? So you can decide to classify them any format.
Okay, got it.
Okay. So now what should be your approach? We listen, speak, negotiate, and make a commitment. Because listening is extremely important. It's actually, if you are able to validate what you're listening in the same format what other person is talking, then the dialogue starts happening, and that's when you are able to negotiate better. We talked about MBTIs. What should you be doing? So we talked about Thomas Kilman conflict mode also, which is competing, collaborating, compromising, avoiding, and accommodating. On a scale of assertiveness and cooperativeness, this is how you probably seen by other person. All these styles are important, but in considering or not, no one style is specifically important. Though people talk about collaborating is important. But at times, some places accommodation is required, some places compromise is required. But it has to be considering the situation. It has to be sometimes, sometimes you probably you need to you have a fresh college graduate, and you want to completely stay in a directing mode. You want to when you are having that conversation with that person. So you make that person say what this person wants to say, but at the same time realizing what this person, you cannot leave this person on their own. So it's about ensuring that you are directing and you're accommodating their listening need. So it depends, different situation. What is concern for people versus concern for results? I don't think I need to talk around this. How we learn: 1% through taste, 1.5% through touch, 3.5% through smell, 11% through hearing, and 83% through sight. So you ensure that you use more visuals in your training. We do 10% of what we read, 20% of what we hear, 30% of what we see, 50% of what we see and hear, and 80% of what we say. So, and 90% of what we say and act. So you make sure that you validate with a person. I mean, that's how buying compromise or buying agreement from an individual is very important. We used to do a training for managers, which is managing expectations, because often they used to struggle with that their people are agreeing on something, but they're still not doing it. So are they buying? Are they managing expectations right? Are they buying agreement in a format from their own mouth, or are they giving them agreements? So it's important that how do you have those conversations? Adult learning principles, because they are self-directed, they have different learning styles, so you create a conducive environment for them, and you give them a charge of their learning. So you involve them and let them talk about their experiences. Inclusion is extremely important, because we all talk about diversity, but the way we are able to include them that's where we get benefit. So it's extremely important. Do not use, so I talked about to be global, what should you be doing? A checklist. You got to give me a minute, I'll go get a glass of water. Yeah. My throat, I think.
Important, please.
That's one benefit of working from home. So you can take those breaks whenever you need.
Correct.
So what is you understand colloquialism, correct?
Colloquials.
Colloquials, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Perfect. So you don't do that, because in global settings, it's at times it often people, you avoid sentences with negatives. You don't joke around humor and culture. So it's sensitive. We have the Pride Month running, and you avoid interrupting. These are a couple of checklists which I have shared during conversations, because these checklists is something which you can use while writing your answers also, and you must, because they give you opportunity to block or to write more in bullet points and convey your understanding in a better manner. Open-ended questions, closed-ended questions, overhead questions, relay questions, directed questions, reverse questions, redirected questions. You understand all of them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. Your behavior, what it reflects, impact on the group. So you can probably, when you smile, you make eye contact, you look approachable to people, it helps you to build a better rapport and sense of belonging. So you can, break your behavior the way it reflects, and it impacts on the group. We talked about experiential learning cycle, action, experience, reflection, and rationalization. I'm just opening up those PPTs just to ensure We also talked about, the type of responses you can probably have. What is paraphrasing? What is, how should you be mirroring examples? How should you be stacking examples? How should you be encouraging? What is the tip for answering questions? You build the answer or question in your presentation. You acknowledge and appreciate. So these are a couple of things I talked about. You should not be answering a specific person. You should be answering the entire audience. You should recognize the participant by name if you possibly can. And you can also use that as an opportunity of encouraging others to participate by throwing the question back to the group. What is okay? You can always use poll. What is you ensure? You should excite, empower, involve, and inform the participant. You inform about the purpose of the conversation, the purpose of the meeting. So you ensure that you are through and through involving and engaging people in the session for them to have those key takeaways, because you're doing session it for them. You would only be successful if they learn along with you. So for them to involve, you need to engage and involve them so that they reflect on those learnings and they are able to connect it with their examples and then translate this in form of experience for themselves. Like excite examples. If we are successful, we'll walk away with probably a new hiring process, or we'll walk away with the new learning in terms of using it while we interact with people. So you ensure that you help them decode that what's in it for them. And this is, we talked around dysfunctions. Rupesh, I think you brought in question from last paper also. One of you brought, you have any question paper which you want to talk about?
Question paper?
Last.
No, I don't have any.
Vandana ma'am, if you can tell me out the books that are provided from ISTD, which chapters are relevant for this particular paper?
I don't have it right with me. So what I can probably do is I can message it to you once we get connected. Yeah.
Correct.
Which book are you currently reading, Arnab?
There are two books given by two authors, and those are given by ISTD. So I don't know which chapters. Though I have seen few chapters on facilitation, asking questions. I think those are the ones, but I'm just guessing. I'm just guessing that those are the chapters. Rupesh, do you know which chapters?
Yes, facilitation skills. That first book is Janki Raman. So 4, 5, 6. Chapter number 4, 5, 6 covered.
Okay, and another book?
And another book is Agochia book, chapter 4.
Agochia, Devendra Agochia.
Yeah, chapter 4.
Chapter 4, okay.
Right.
Okay, got it. Thanks, buddy. Okay, thanks, Rupesh.
I think you should till exams, you should make a group and you should do a group study. What we even did is when I was doing my course. So what we because we were working and it was very difficult for us to to read or sit through books. So what we did is as per our understanding, we picked up topic among groups. We recorded this and we recorded in terms of summaries of a particular topic in our voices, and we shared those audio clips within the group. Because it was easier to listen rather than read. So those 15 minute snippets.
Sure.
You can try that as well.
But the questions trained in the last semester, I mean, first semester of our batch, it was totally based on COVID. I mean, every
Acha,
question related to COVID only in all
like,
papers. I
like,
mean, how we can do trainings, how we can, I mean, because last year many things has been changed. I mean, due to COVID. So how trainers will impart training in that scenario, or so every question was related to somewhere. I mean, COVID situation.
so in that scenario, what I suggest, जो मैंने आपको एक बार brainstorming virtual meeting sessions के लिए आप कैसे engage करोगे virtual meeting sessions में? If they are asking a practical question around that, you
Yes,
can use those techniques. You can use
yes,
those
yes.
examples. Yeah. I mean, everybody knows that how should they be engaging, and should they still should be engaging, whether it is a virtual or an online setting, is important. So
Yeah, definitely. I mean, time to time, this webinars organized by ISTD. I mean, definitely. I mean, all these things help somewhere in our exams. I mean, can get points from that.
Rupesh, one request, like you have shared for facilitation skills paper, no? Can you
Yeah,
share for all the papers in the group, the WhatsApp group,
papers means
like other papers, with
uh,
chapter from both the books, Janki Raman and Agochia?
वो शायद के वर्मा
वो
सर ने भी
already
कभी शेयर किए थे.
हाँ,
हाँ,
yes, yes.
I
वही से.
missed that, I think. अगर
तो
वही आप
I'll send it
forward
to.
कर देना.
I will send it to you immediately. No problem.
ठीक
I'll send.
ठीक. Thank you so much.
On your mail ID, I'll send detail.
अच्छा अच्छा. Thank you. Thanks.
you have each other's email ID.
Yeah, I'm
Yes,
sending
I think me and Rupesh connected. So
Okay, perfect. Any specific thing you want to talk about, or if you have, I can simply talk about what is structured and unstructured, what is self-paced, what is instructor-led, what is off-the-shelf, what is bespoke, what is online, offline, what is synchronous, asynchronous, individual and collaborative. I can go back to the Kubler-Ross curve, which you wanted to talk, or a Kotler change management model.
Right.
Anything specific you want to talk about, or anything else you want me to talk about?
So in this, I think most of the things are clear.
And use things like engagement things, multi-ranking,
Right.
Voting, multi-voting,
Yeah.
ranking, reverse brainstorming, so and energizers, icebreakers, flip chart, or maybe just go wild in the book. So I think lot boils around, as you rightly said, around COVID. So lot around planning or engagement in the virtual settings is important. So now you have to modify everything around that. So Kubler-Ross change curve, I talked about emotional response to change. I talked about initially you will be in a shock state, so surprise or a shock. Then you will have a deny, disbelief. You're looking for evidence that this isn't true. You're sharing knowledge. You're creating alignment. It's just a creative alignment. This is not true. Then you get into frustration. You recognize that things are different. Sometimes you're angry. You're maximizing communication. You're talking to each other about it. Then you even, you're low on, you're lacking on energy, literally on a depression. So you spark. Then you, at that stage, it's completely low. You've gone down. So you shock. It's downward you. Then you go on a depression. Then you, from there on, you start coming up. You spark motivation. Then you experiment. Initial engagement with the new situation, you engage. You develop a capability in a new situation to work. And then you take a decision. You decision how to work in a new situation. You feel more positive. And then you integrate. You eventually have, you share, you're okay with that. You have found ways of becoming successful in that situation. So any change, if happens in our life, like you can probably use this in a facilitation wherein you bring in a new SAP system, or you bring in a new enterprise system which people are not willing to accept. So you let them what's happening in their own mind, because most of the time people say that we know what is happening. We know it would not be successful. We have always worked in Excel. It is dwindling our efficiencies. So whenever you will connect things with emotions and insight, you will let the learnings stick, and you will able to establish a connect with an audience, and people would be willing to listen to you. So creating that kind of an awareness among people that yes, this is happening and I'm cognizant of it and I am okay with that, but now we move on with that. So we need to move on with that. So that's around Kubler-Ross. And also, Kotler talks about it. Kotler's when Kotler model is normally used when we are bringing in a change in anything in the organization. You establish a sense of urgency, you create a vision, you empower others to act on a vision, you consolidate the improvement, and you produce, and you're producing still more changes. You institutionalize this new approach. Before, and then finally you institutionalize this new approach. But in between, you also bring in a guiding collation. You create, you talk about the vision. There is huge communication around it. There is a huge planning which happens around it. You consolidate. You tell people that consolidated format that these are the improvement we'll get. And finally, institutionalize, wherein people have accepted the change. You have constantly communicated it to them, connected it to the vision, and you have told them this is how it will help improve the entire situation, and be comfortable with that change, and institutionalize this. So that was around change, because it helped you to connect better with people, and it helped you to be more effective and create that kind of a rapport with people. Does that make sense, Rupesh?
Second.
Yes. Absolutely.
So see, things you got to be playing around emotions, engagement, and involvement, and more so in a virtual setting. Use those brainstorming technique. Use those icebreakers, energizers. Do them early so that you encash onto an opportunity of connecting people early, and people are okay to talk with you. In brainstorming also, even if you're not able to write about those elaborate technique I talked about, the react versus create. If I probably give you a crushed paper and ask you to make boat out of it, you might try better, versus if I simply ask you make a boat, you don't know how to make a boat. So maybe I need to, if I give you some idea, then it becomes much easier for you to think around that, versus I completely ask you to start afresh. So you get people thinking, you let them into react versus create mode, because maybe down over a period of time, you can take them to create, maybe during that session itself. But in the beginning, it's much easier for people to react. So you make it easier for people, and you make probably a word wall. You let people think around that, or move around that. It becomes easier, and you're able to involve and engage them. Do this in small groups so that you get to work in trios and duos, so that you're able to engage everybody. That's pretty much I wanted to talk. Or these are use these things. So use those examples: polling, voting, virtual rooms, chat rooms. Because use that. I don't know if you have used those chat rooms experience in Zoom, but it works very well. You can have multiple chat rooms, and you can create discussion with the way you were doing in your physical settings. Similar way, you can you have an opportunity of people randomly picked up for those chat groups, or you can decide who goes into which room. So if you have if you have a group of say 15 people, and if you have to create maybe 5 rooms of 3 people each, like that, you can do that and let people have their own discussion, and then they come back. So when they have those discussions, they move off your screen. They are separate physical Zoom chat rooms, and then you can dissolve the chat room, they come back to the main screen. So it's a good experience. So you can leverage on that. Energizer should be something which should be fun and uplifting. You should not be having more than 5 minutes. So you conduct them with sufficient space, or if virtually, then don't drag them. Don't use them for very long duration. Becomes easier for people to because they start losing interest in talking to each other also. So you make sure that you bring them back. You consolidate those and summarize those learnings. Flip chart had been very important, but you can use guide code in virtual rooms. That's it. Anything else you should, you probably can want to share with your fellow members, suggestions, recommendation, because if we have questions from the past papers, it becomes much easier to talk through and through. अगर last year के paper में से कोई question याद नहीं रुपेश जी आपको?
नहीं, अभी एक्चुअली पेपर्स मेरे पास सारे हैं, बट आई एम इन गोरखपुर, सो नेटिव प्लेस में आया हूँ, तो दैट इज द प्रॉब्लम एक्चुअली. तो बुक्स एंड कॉपीज तो आई हैव ब्रॉट, बट पेपर सारे वहीं पड़े हुए हैं. प्रॉब्लम एक्चुअली.
ठीक है. Anything specific if you want to ask? I'm happy to talk around that.
One question. Typically, sometimes you go to organizations and they look forward for training. And say, for example, organization says our organization is going for losses for last 2 years, and the employees are highly demotivated, and the sales are low, the performance is not coming up. So हम चाहते हैं कुछ motivation करा दो. This is the exact words they say. हम चाहते हैं कुछ motivation करा दो. Now, typically, the first thing that rings in my mind is I'm sure something is wrong with your business approach and your processes, and it is not only training. And you are looking up to me as an HR, and you also don't have a clue what is happening in your organization. I mean, that's the idea I get sometimes. So, but you are looking for training, which is a motivation training. Someone will come, shout, and go back. I typically don't believe in it. I'm not that kind of a person who can, give examples of Ramayana, Mahabharata, or whatever glorious stories, and then say everything is over now, everything is fine, and let's focus on positivity. So that's the objective of a motivational training. In such situations, what is your take, or I know it's a little vague for me as a question, but what's your take? How do you handle such questions when you are asked?
See, Arnab, if you ask me to, I'm sorry, did you complete?
Yes, I'm through. Yeah.
So if you want me to solve world hunger problem, first of all, you're not specific with what is it that you're trying to solve for.
Correct.
Unless I know what I'm trying to solve for, how can I solve it? It's a very generic ask. It's a very generic ask because if you want me to, tell people how should they be making a sale, how should they be pitching, what is customer centricity, I still have, some thinking around what should be my icebreakers, what should be my content delivery, what should be my root place. But this is, I would not lose an opportunity absolutely if they are asking me to do a motivation training. I'll do a motivation
typically
training.
what they want is everyone's head is down, you do something so that their heads are up. How do you do it? I mean, since we had to earn money, we suggested something, but other than that, it was not making sense.
Yeah, there are a lot of things which it is also a function of the kind of managers they have, the kind of feedback are they getting, how specific. See, if you're interested in Vandana's welfare, probably you got to be telling her how should she be improving her presentation skill. Because it's it's her professional skills versus which actually help her create that kind of impact and influence. Managers need to be specific. They need to be serious in terms of constantly reinforcing that feedback, giving opportunity to that individual to experiment those learnings. So you can't go and do a magic for them and then, okay, if they have fun, you can help them have fun and understand motivation.
In fact, the next thing I suggested them was to let us speak to their employees and let us understand what is broken.
I agree.
But they were not so keen on doing that. I could sense that they were uncomfortable because the time was such maybe in the organization that the HR also never wanted themselves to be exposed that they are looking at this aspect of employees, and maybe asking only would add fuel to the current situation.
Precarious हो जाता है because they're not transparent.
Similar आता है. For example, एक बार I mean last bit में I don't want to extend my conversation and take more time, but कई बार ऐसा भी आता है कि for example they look for people who are non-team players or who create conflict. So they say we have told the people that people who create conflict will come for conflict management program. I said you already created a conflict. So,
Right.
तो आपने तो ये बोल के कॉन्फ्लिक्ट क्रिएट कर दिया कि आप कॉन्फ्लिक्ट में, एंड टिपिकली द रिस्पांस ऑफ दोस पार्टिसिपेंट्स वर कि हम तो करते ही नहीं, हमारी तो जरूरत नहीं, उसको भेजो वो करता है, हम तो ऐसा कुछ करते ही नहीं है, आपने हमारा नाम क्यों दिया? आई सेड आपने तो ये बोल के ही प्रोग्राम शुरू होने से पहले खत्म कर दिया. यू शुड हैव आस्क्ड अस कि आप इसे कैसे अप्रोच करेंगे, किस तरह आप
वर्डिक्ट पास हो गया.
वर्डिक्ट पास हो गया, मतलब मैं जा रहा हूँ तो मतलब मैं कॉन्फ्लिक्ट करता हूँ.
राइट.
पहले ही क्लोज कर दिया उन्होंने उनको.
हाँ, मतलब कई बार ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ही ऐसा अजीब सा सोल्यूशन मांगती है और उसमें खुद ही फंस जाती है और फिर कहती है कि हमें निकालो. It's very difficult.
But I think the key thing here could be, see, we all operate from different personality types. So you can absolutely, but beyond having fun, create that kind of awareness within these people that these are the different personality types. Just know it. Because Vandana doesn't like this, it doesn't mean Rupesh also doesn't like this. Rupesh might like something else. So awareness within me that this is how I operate, but awareness that others operate in a different manner. And that I'm willing to accept others the way they operate. So awareness and what is motivation? I mean, help them understand motivation, Maslow's hierarchy, if they need to know through examples. Help them understand motivation hota kya hai. Let them have some fun. Because the basic needs to be right for the organization and culture.
Yeah.
Actually, any motivational training is only based on conscious mind effort. I mean, so it should be based on subconscious mind. Then it would be effective. Otherwise, just waste of time.
भूलेंगे ही नहीं ना रुपेश, आप उन्हें इस लेवल पे लेके ही नहीं आओगे. Then you will be able to have a conversation with that subconscious level. वो अगर if I don't trust you and if the environment is not risk free, why would I be willing to talk to you? वो transparency बड़ा मुश्किल है for a trainer to go stand and create that kind of credibility and trust. Trust होगा तो बात करेंगे.
No, that's true. In fact, कई बार क्या होता है, पहले प्रोग्राम के बाद you establish trust and then you get into solution, because पहला प्रोग्राम is more of being comfortable with the organization, knowing people, and then you gradually give solutions. So एक बारी में कई बार possible नहीं है.
And make difference to their life. Like whatever you've been telling them, help them translate that in action planning. Create opportunities. अगर वो 2% भी take away आपकी training के बाद है ना, so over a period of time you can build that trust.
Right.
Correct. Yeah, true.
And trust is a training again. So we used to do a training on trust also.
Yeah.
Help them decode that as well. So let them know at conceptual level.
Correct. True.
Chaliye, thank you so much, guys.
Okay.
You have
Thank you.
Yeah, all the best for your exam.
Thank you. And we'll prepare. We'll remind you for getting more material for us good students to prepare right.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vandana. Thanks, Rupesh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Verma sir. Bye bye.
Bye bye.